Hi, it's Andy here at Photech Video, and in today's video we're going to see if we can take acceptable, well-exposed portraits here in my small studio using this $40 80-watt LED COB mini Bowens mount light. So a few days ago, I uploaded a video to my channel which talks about this budget-priced 80-watt LED COB mini Bowens mount light, which is an all-metal construction and has a built-in fan. As I said before, this light cost me just $40 US. If you want to know more about this little light, please check out the video linked in up here. Now, this particular light does not have a brand on it. It's called the ZU80. There's also a sister version, which is called the ZU60, which is very similar in size and weight, but apparently the ZU60 is a 60 watt, and apparently the ZU80 is an 80 watt light. Now, as you know, I normally use flash here in my studio. However, a number of people have asked me about continuous light for portraits in the studio and what kind of power they would need to have. So in today's video, we're going to test this using just the ZU80 with no light modifier. Then we're going to add the reflector, which comes in the box, and hopefully that will increase a little bit the light output. We're also going to test it using this white silicone dome, which is also included in the box. Then I'm going to attach this elastic white diffuser sock to the front of the included reflector to see how that affects the light which hits our subject. It should make it a little bit softer, but not very much because the size is still very, very small. And finally, we're going to test it using this 30 centimeter mini Bowens mount softbox, which has double diffusion and also has a grid on the front. You may have noticed that on the bottom of the light, screwed into the 1/4 inch female thread, I have one of these 360-degree ball joints, which I use on my light stands for any small accessories or small lights which I have, as it allows me more freedom with the direction of the light. Okay, so how are we going to measure the amount of light that falls on our subject using just the light itself with no light modifier, and then with the different light modifiers? Well, if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I try to take total control of the lighting in my studio. Now, so that you can see me in this video, I have two LED video lights here, which are lighting up the studio and myself. And I need to set my camera so that we cannot see the light which these video lights are creating in the studio. So those settings are a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second, an aperture of f/5.6, and an ISO of 100. As you may also know, I use my kit lens for my demonstration videos. My camera is the Panasonic Lumix S5, and the kit lens is the 20 to 60mm f/3.5 to f/5.6. Now, when I get that total control over the lighting in the studio, the ambient light, and I take a photo without the flash or continuous light on my subject, I should get a completely black image. So in each of the accessory tests, I'm going to be going back again to those settings. And if I'm not getting enough light on my subject, then I will open the aperture as much as I can. Remember, this is a kit lens, and so because I'm using it at 28mm, it's giving me an f/4. So I can open my aperture a little. If that's not enough, then I'm going to have to reduce my shutter speed, make my shutter speed longer. But obviously there is a limit to that, because under normal circumstances, our camera may not be on a tripod in the studio, and our model may not be as still as Carol is. So I think I would feel safe slowing my shutter speed down to 1/100th of a second. If I still haven't got enough light on my subject, then I'm going to have to use the ISO. So let me just run that past you again. We're going to begin with total control of the ambient light, so a black frame. We're going to have the ZU80 set to 100% power, and we're going to have the color temperature at 5,000 5,300 Kelvin, because that's the sweet spot of this light when you get more or less the maximum amount of brightness. And finally, you can see here, I have a tape measure. I've measured the distance from the cheek of Carol to the light itself at 70 centimeters. As I add different accessories, I may need to move a little bit backwards or forwards the light so that the 70 centimeters continue to be constant. Okay, so first of all, let's take that completely black shot here in the studio to demonstrate that we have total control of the light. So my shutter speed is set to 1/200th of a second, my aperture at f5.6, and my ISO value is 100. And there we have the shot. We can see just a little bit of Carol's face, but basically we have a total control of our ambient light here. There's no influence at all from my LED studio lights. Okay, so the first test is going to be the ZU80 at 100% brightness at 5,300 Kelvin with no light modifier at a 70 centimeter distance from Carol's face. So let's turn the light on and see how it's going to affect her. We can see immediately then that her face is illuminated. However, we can't see any of the zebras. I have the zebras activated on my Panasonic Lumix S5 at 70%. Anywhere between 65 and 70% is good for judging the exposure on a particular part of the skin. So until those zebras start to appear, we haven't got a correct exposure. So remember, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open my aperture. I'm on f5.6, and because this is the kit lens, I can only open up to f4, which is one full stop of light. So let's try it and see. We're on f5 now, still no zebras, f4.6, and there are a few zebras just beginning to appear on her forehead, just above her eyelash. And now we are on f4, which is my maximum aperture on this kit lens at 28 millimeters. This means that we still haven't got enough light yet. So the next thing we can do is to slow down the shutter speed. Remember, we're on 1/200th of a second, and the slowest shutter speed that I will feel safe with for this portrait is 1/100th, which again is one full stop of light. So let's see how these zebras get stronger on Carol's face by slowing down the shutter speed. So at the moment we're on 200, we're down to 1/160th of a second, and we can see that those zebras now are stronger. Now we're down to 1/125th of a second, and they are pretty strong now. And now we're down to 1/100th. And I think those zebras now are more or less at their maximum, meaning that between the opening of the aperture and the slowing down of the shutter speed, we have increased the light which is hitting our sensor by 2 full stops. This means that the ZU80 with no light modifier is 2 stops of light below what I really want to be able to control my ambient light. Now you will have seen that our background now is more visible. So not only have we obtained a correct exposure on the lit side of Carol's face, but we have also increased the light in the studio, which is something that you may want to do or you may not want to do. Okay, so I've moved the camera settings back to what they were, 1/200th of a second, f5.6 at 100 ISO. And like that, we're going to do another test, and this time all I've done is added the included mini Bowens mount reflector to the front of the ZU80. And hopefully this is going to give us more light hitting the lit side of Carol's face. So everything else is the same. The ZU80 is set to 100% brightness at 5,300 Kelvin. So let's turn it on again and see how this time it affects us. And when we look at the back of our camera, we can see immediately that there are zebras all the way down the lit side of Carol's face. Meaning that by adding the reflector to the ZU80, we've effectively increased the light output. Let's see by how much. Remember that we were 2 stops missing without the reflector. I think we could probably get away with the exposure as it is, but let's open the aperture a little bit and see how that affects those zebras. So now we're on f5, and quite honestly, I'm pretty happy with the exposure on Carol's face. And if we take that photo, we can see that most of the background is still black. I've intentionally left another ZU80 on this side and a softbox on a C-stand on the other side so that we can see how the light is changing in the background. But it's still pretty black, and if I cropped that, I would be able to obtain a black background, which means that I've got a pretty good control of the ambient light using this setting and using the reflector on the ZU80. So let's calculate the changes in the settings which we've needed to make to be able to get the correct exposure on Carol. And all we've done is gone from f5.6 to f5, which is just 1/3 of a stop. So with the reflector, all we need to do is add 1/3 of a stop more light to our sensor, but without the reflector, we need to add 2 full stops. So the calculation is very simple. This reflector is effectively increasing the output of light by 1 2/3 of a stop of light. Remember, every stop of light is double the amount of the previous one. Okay, so this time all we're going to do is we're going to take this white silicon dome and we're going to attach it to the front of the reflector to see how much light this is going to cut out. So there we have it attached to the front of the reflector. I've reset our camera settings again to 1/200th of a second, f5.6, ISO 100 to give the same conditions to the test. We're still at 70 centimeters away from Carol's face. So let's turn it on and see what we've got. And we can immediately see that this light is not as bright as before. There are no zebras on Carol's face. Also remember that this dome has effectively changed our light into a large light bulb, which means there is light spreading out all over the studio. So let's begin to change our settings and see what we get. First of all, let's open our aperture from 5.6. Let's go down to f5. We're now down to f4.5. There are no zebras yet. And now we're on f4. Still no zebras. That means we need to begin to slow down our shutter speed. So we're on 1/200th of a second. Now we're on 1/160th of a second. Now we're on 1/125th of a second. And now we're on 1/100th of a second. And the zebras have just begun to appear on the lit side of Carol's face. So we've already increased the light hitting our sensor by 2 full stops, but it's still not enough. So now I have to go to the ISO, and I'm going to change my ISO from 100 to 200 ISO, which is effectively doubling the sensitivity of my sensor, which is another full stop being amplified on the signal hitting my sensor. And let's see how those zebras are looking. And that is more or less what we've seen in the previous tests. I'm just going to increase it a little bit more to 250. And yes, that is a similar exposure now on her face. So let's just take the photo and we can see that the whole room has a similar light. We've not only increased the exposure on Carol's face, we've also illuminated the other side and the whole of the room. This is why, for me, in this situation, increasing the ISO is the final option. So let's do our calculation again. We opened up a full stop on our aperture, we increased a full stop on our shutter speed, and we've increased 1 1/3 stops on our ISO, which is a total of 3 1/3 stops. Remember that the reflector gave a perfect exposure by opening the aperture just by 1/3 of a stop. So if now, to get the correct exposure, we've needed to increase by 3 1/3, that means that this little white silicon dome is effectively reducing the light output by 3 full stops. Apart from the fact that it's illuminating a lot more of the area, and it's very difficult to direct that light where we want it to go. So I'm not a lover of these white silicon domes. However, it would be great to get a little bit softer light. And that's where this white diffuser sock comes in. So as you can see, I've attached this white reflector sock to the front of the reflector. So let's see if we get a little bit softer light, because this small LED light is extremely hard. And let's see how much light it's actually going to reduce. So let's turn it on. And let's take a look at the back of our camera again, and we can see that Carol is illuminated. We can see that our background is nice and black, but we still can't see any zebras on her. So I'm going to open my aperture from f5.6 to f5. Still no zebras. I'm now on f4.5 and f4. So we can see now those zebras are starting to kick in, but now we have to continue allowing more light in by reducing our shutter speed. So from 1/200th of a second down to 1/160th of a second, those zebras are stronger. Now at 1/125th of a second, even stronger, and now at 100. And I think that is our exposure, more or less. So let's take the photo. And we can see that our background is definitely darker and the light is definitely a little bit softer. So we've increased the light coming into the camera on the aperture by 1 full stop and on the shutter speed by another full stop, which is 2 stops. Remember, this silicon dome cut out 3 1/3 stops of light, and the white diffuser sock cuts out 2 stops of light. And finally, let's test to see how much light output is reduced by attaching this mini Bowens mount 30cm double diffusion softbox with a grid on the front. Now this time I'm going to adjust the distance because as it protrudes, I'm going to count the second diffusion, which is about here, as the source of the light. Okay, so the softbox is now attached to the ZU80. The settings are back to the test settings again, where we have total control of our ambient light. And let's turn on the ZU80 and see what we get. And immediately we can see that the light on the lit side of Carol's face is reduced by a great deal. So I think it's pretty clear that we're going to have to open the aperture up to our maximum 4.0, which is 1 stop. We're going to slow our shutter speed down to 1/100th of a second, which is another full stop. And now we're going to have to increase our ISO. And I think we're going to need to increase to at least 200 ISO. We have a few zebras now kicking in on the lit side of her face, so we need to increase that ISO even more. Let's take it up to 400 and see what the zebras are looking like now. Let's just increase it a little bit more to 500 and see. And now those zebras are correct. So let's take the photo. And again, we can see that yes, the exposure is correct on the lit side of Carol's face. However, because we've increased the ISO so much, again, we've illuminated the other side of her face as well as all the space around us in this small studio. If you have any comments or questions related to this video, please leave them in the comments section down below. I love reading your comments and questions, and I always answer them. And interacting with my channel is a great way for me to know the kind of content that you would like me to continue creating for you. So it's pretty clear. Yes, we can use continuous LED low-powered lights in the studio for portrait photography. But there are sacrifices. We lose the total control of the light in the studio. And the more the light modifier cuts out the light, the more we need to either use a lens which has a wider aperture or increase the ISO. And as you've seen, by increasing the ISO, it just increases the whole of the scene, not just the subject. You'll find affiliate links to the ZU80 and some of these accessories, as well as other gear used in the making of this video, in the description section down below. If you decide to purchase something through one of my affiliate links, thank you. The price to you is the same, and you'll be supporting the channel, as I will receive a small commission which will help me to continue creating content for you here on the channel. So these continuous LED lights can be used in the studio with those sacrifices. Yes, you can do portrait photography in the studio. Remember, we're talking here about portrait photography. If we're doing product photography or still life, everything changes because we can put our camera on a tripod and our subject is not going to move, which means we can reduce the shutter speed to compensate for that lack of light. Well, I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope it's managed to answer some of the questions which you may have had related to using continuous light for portrait photography. If you did find it interesting, please click on the like button, share it on your favorite apps with friends and family who may be interested in this type of content. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and ring on that notification bell to be notified every time a new video drops on my channel. So until the next time, this is Andy at Photech Video signing off. Take care and be safe.